Hello, my stitchy witchy friends. My name is Cher Johnston. Welcome to my happy place. We're going to work on our beginner series that I just started. Link in the description to my Facebook page, my Ko-fi site where you can get free patterns and stuff. Please hit the like button and hype the video if you would be so kind. Share, subscribe, all those things that help the algorithm. Today we're going to talk about fabrics and needles and threads. So first I wanted to show you a small collection of I save everything, right? And I realized after I was talking to my sister also sews. So she just finished a quilt, or she's making a quilt for one of her granddaughters. And it's like 3-inch, I think she said she used 3-inch squares. So anything that's smaller than 3 inches, she throws away after she's done. I have little teeny tiny pieces. Some of these, I think, will have to go in the bin. I don't know. They might go into an ort jar. Orts, I used that term in our first video. Orts are little pieces of things. We use it to mean little pieces of, like, I have orts all over my desk here. This is an ort. I save all my orts. I decided I can't save everything unless I start using them. So I have to start using my orts. So sometimes when I stitch on a video, I don't tell you what thread I'm using because it's just an ort. It's something I picked up off my desk and we're going to use that. But I have other pieces, like this I know is a piece of fabric that I tea stained, and I like it. Has an interesting edge. I'm going to keep it. This one is a piece left over. My mother used to square dance, and she made a lot of her square dance dresses. This is from one of her square dance dresses, so even though it's tiny, I'm going to keep it. This particular fabric is from a dress that I used to wear, and I think it's kind of interesting. I might keep it. This is from my mom. Again, I don't know what this is from. I think I inherited a bunch of diamond shapes that she had cut. Like, she quilted a lot, so I think she took her leftover pieces of fabric and just cut quilt shapes. I think a lot of people do that. This I find very interesting, and I'm gonna keep it because, I could do little lazy daisy stitches on that. I could do little French knots and stuff. So I'm gonna keep that. I always keep my leftover linen, even if they're tiny pieces. And this is a piece I love. This was and I just love the color. This is a leftover piece of fabric. Yeah, we bought that when my granddaughter was little, and I ended up not using it. Anyways, those are little pieces that I have that I will save. If you have your own little pieces, use whatever you have. If you don't have any fabric and you have to go buy fabric, I would encourage you to go to a thrift store. Just a regular thrift store. Here in the US, they're called thrift stores or Goodwill stores. You can also sometimes find specifically craft thrift stores. There's one in Pasadena, and I always forget the name of it because it's weird, not a normal. There's also one in Chatsworth run by a wonderful lady named Liz. It's called Quilting for Community. She does free quilting classes, which I think is amazing. So the thread I'm going to use today is from Sue Spargo. It is a number 3 pearl cotton, and the color is EZM26. It's a beautiful pink. I love it. It's really thick. A number 3 is thicker than a number 8. I'm going to do a quilter's knot here. Just wrap around the needle one time and pull through. I can get through. My hands are a little bit sweaty because it's kind of warm out here today. Ta-da! There's our knot. You can also do this kind of, when I was little and my mother taught me to sew, we did this kind of knot. I call that a granny knot. I think I've heard somebody else too call that a granny knot. And then you can also just cut off the little tail. We don't need those. As long as you want to leave a tail though, so you can tighten it. As long as you have the knot really in there. So needles. So use whatever thread you have. If you don't have thread, again, try a thrift store first. Look for crafting thrift stores in your area. You can get secondhand. There's a lot of DMC threads in secondhand stores. Also, I got a lot of my really fancy threads at thrift stores. Or, of course, you can always get DMC threads really inexpensive at like Hobby Lobby, or you can get them online too, pretty cheap. Okay, then I have this lovely little piece of fabric. I don't want to do running stitch through him. I'm going to show you another stitch and we'll chit chat while I'm stitching. I want pins though. I don't really want pins. Well, this is fine. This will do. So this is a really cute little orange kitty. And what we're going to do today is an overcast stitch. Now, you could use, my needle's not quite big enough. I'm going in through the fabric. I'm going down through the back. I'm going to go up along the edge and then pull through. Okay, hold on. My needle's not big enough. Which reminds me to talk about the size of your needle. You have to have a needle that's big enough that you can get the thread through the needle. This one's rather this thread is rather large, so I want to use a nice sized, this is a chenille needle. They have a nice long eye, sharp point, and I use them for ribbon when I do ribbon embroidery or thick threads like this. You can, if you're using sewing thread, like machine sewing thread, you can use embroidery needles. And I have some needles that I can show you, but basically use what you have to start with. I also use milliner's needles for knots. If you're going to go out and buy needles, like if you're going to go to Hobby Lobby and pick up some needles to buy, I would say be sure that you get a package of embroidery needles and find yourself at least one milliner's needle. The milliner's needle is the same width from the eye of the needle to the tip. That's good for knots. We'll do knots later on. Right now we're just doing an overcast stitch. If you want, oh, I forgot to talk about um, lace, and I didn't bring out any lace. Oh my gosh. Let's talk about lace. A lot of people with slow stitching use a lot of lace. I'm going to stab stitch this because I'm going through layers and layers of fabric. And stab stitching just means up to the top and pull through, and then back to the bottom and pull through. Let's see. To hoop or not to hoop? Let's talk about hoops. I don't use a hoop because when I learned to sew, I learned just, my mother taught me just basic stitches like the overcast stitch. I learned the basting stitch. I learned to sew on a sewing machine before I learned any kind of hand stitching. So, and the only hand stitching I did was like the kind of stitching that you do when you make clothes, that kind of thing, you know. So I didn't use a hoop. If you want to do embroidery, you should probably get a hoop and teach yourself to use a hoop. I have not learned. I'm just going to skip over the top of that because he's not really covered in the back by any kind of fabric. I do a lot of embroidery. Probably should use a hoop. Using a hoop prevents the fabric from getting bunched up because the fabric is like taut. I have a hard time using a hoop, but I don't. I also just really like the see my back. The back's really messy. I kind of like it. I distract myself sometimes and get off on tangents. I was talking about hoops. With slow stitch, there's no rules. You don't have to use a hoop. If you're doing embroidery or you're doing proper embroidery, there's all these rules about using a hoop, and that you pad the hoop and you use gloves when you're stitching, and I don't even know all the rules. I just know that there are rules with hand embroidery that, rules that must be followed. Those are that's really old school stuff. But with slow stitch, there are no rules. And I can tell you what I do and show you what I do. You most certainly should do whatever you feel like doing. If I show you how to do a stitch and you want to do it a different way, something that you made up, it's fine. That's all better. I tend to, a lot of people who do stitching online love the wonky, the wonky uneven stitches and they like it to look a little bit, they like the torn and tattered. I do like torn edges, but there's a reason for that. I like to tear my edges because then you get the straight, because then it's super straight. That's why I like torn edges. But I tear the edge and then I iron the fabric. I also iron a lot. You don't have to iron. Believe me, you don't have to iron. Not sure why I like ironing. I just like it. Not that I like ironing, I think I like working with fabrics that are ironed. So when I sort through my fabrics, I will iron them all. And yeah, kind of silly, huh? Okay. Now, when you do an overcast stitch, you're not necessarily going to see all those little stitches. If I had done this in white sewing thread, you and did it tiny enough, you wouldn't see them. And if you want them hidden, that's what you do. Also, you can take the edges and turn the edges under. I think that's called needle turn applique. Excuse me. I don't do, excuse me, I have the hiccups. I'm going to drink of my tea. Ah, okay, what was I saying? Oh, we're talking about turning edges. With slow stitch, you don't have to turn the edges like that. You can if you want to. And I think now that I've folded that over like that, I think I'm just going to tack this down along the back. I'm just going to go through the back layer and tack this down with another overcast stitch. And then I'm going to show you how I always have 2 layers so that I can use the back layer to put knots in. So now that I'm done with this thread, I'm going to go to the back. I'm going to do a little stitch just in the back back fabric. Then I'm going to do another little tiny stitch in the back. And then you have this, the back gets messy, and I like it. I leave my little tails. Sometimes they get, like this one got a little, nope, it didn't. Sometimes they get sewn in. I don't care. I might cut them off later. I don't know. But that's slow stitching. I love when you're done. I like the feel of, I like what this feels like in my fingers. I like to hold it in my hands. And that's why I don't use a hoop, because you can't really feel it in your hands if you're using a hoop. I love the little kitty. My kitty looks like this one. My little kitty's name is Mitzi. And if you watch me, you'll see her now and then. She makes appearances. Sometimes I show her hanging out by the window. It's like watching TV for them. Okay, that's all I got for today. Thanks for hanging out with me and Mitzi today. I'll see you again next week.